consulting industry in an open way. That is open consulting, and I guess it should be the next stage of consulting business. And we human beings have to trade our things past locally. And we now have eBay, have Taobao in China, who are doing things of trade online. And thus you can sell all your products to all of the world and from nation. And why don't we do consulting this way? And we connect all the companies who are seeking for solutions on the one side, and for the independent consultants on the other side, we are just bridge them and connect them and help them. This is a more exciting field and more revenue here, I guess.
Right, thank you very much. For the time I have to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that concludes all the presentations today.
I'd like to welcome our next keynote speaker, Mr. Adri Reinlanders.
Mr. Renders has a 35-year experience as an entrepreneur, and he is the co-founder and the CEO of eFactor.
For those of you who don't know, eFactor is the largest social network for entrepreneurs in the world, so we're delighted to have him here.
Let's welcome him.
Thank you for inviting me. Great energy here in this room. Very hard to beat the energy of the previous speaker, but perhaps experience counts as well. My name is Adri Reinlanders. I'm from Amsterdam and San Francisco, but I'm not an American, so to speak. I have done business for over 35 years in the technology sphere, ICT, and they asked me to squeeze my whole career in 10 minutes, so it's a challenge in itself. So, my specialty, if you may say so, is building companies, especially IT companies, and I have had my successes and I had my failures. For tonight, I have selected 3 vendors that are completely different from each other, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about the financing, about the exit strategy, and the difficulties I had during the process of building companies. A little bit about myself. Built several technology companies. I've been the chairman of a venture fund in Europe with $750 million invested in technology and life science. And I have been a co-author of a book together with Marion about networking. And of course my current venture is eFactor. The ingredients of building a company I'd like to discuss tonight are about financing, acquisition, exit strategy, and all the things that can go wrong. My first company was a company called Microlife, a consultancy firm around IBM mainframes. And like in many cases, people ask you, how did you start as an entrepreneur? And it's, most of the times, it's a sort of accident. You work for a company, that company doesn't go well, you have to look for another job, and you decide to start your own company because you think you can do better than the previous company. And that's basically the way I started with Microlife, a consultancy firm. And the advantage of a consultancy firm is that you hardly need any money. If you sell your services in the right way with the right profit, you can basically grow the company based on keeping the profits in the company. The advantage of that is that you don't have to share your company with other shareholders. You don't have to raise money, and you basically are in command for the duration of the company. The only problem I had in that company was the fact that I had a partner, and the partner wanted to go out a couple of years before we had our exit. So that was the only hurdle I had in building this company for over 12 years. The exit strategy was a very short one. I had somebody on a Monday afternoon coming to my office and asking whether I wanted to sell the company. I had given him a presentation, and Friday the same week I had the money in my bank account. I've never seen it that quick, and it was quite an experience when the bank calls you and asks you if it's correct that you have so much money in your bank account. It's a great moment. One of the things I learned in that process is that we were a consultancy firm, and especially in the 80s, it was very difficult to explain to banks and investors and buyers what the assets were of a consultancy firm. Because the assets you had feet. They could walk out of the office and you had no assets anymore. So everybody always found that very dangerous to buy into. At that time, there was a movement the first movement of outsourcing. And we had quite a few people working at Shell Oil Company and Philips, managing their networks. And we changed the name of our service from consultancy into outsourcing. And suddenly the company became very popular because everybody wanted to be in outsourcing. So the company didn't change, but we changed the name. And that gave us that 4-day exit. The second venture is probably my most expensive learning experience in my life. I was convinced by a friend of mine to buy the majority of a container ship line between Miami and Manaus. As you probably know, in Manaus they do assembly for electronics because it's a kind of tax haven. I spent about 5 million in this company, got the majority, and basically lost everything. And the question then is always, how did you make so many mistakes in one venture? First mistake is never take a majority stake in a company where you don't know the industry and the players. Always do due diligence on a company, even when it's a friend of yours advising you to take a majority stake. In the process of doing this venture, I thought, why don't we spend the money in establishing a new company instead of taking the old one and building the old one out? I asked that question. Everybody convinced me that was not a smart idea to do. And later on, everybody said, perhaps it was a better idea to spend your money in a new company. So follow your gut feel. If you think it's not right, it's probably not right. Yeah? So another mistake I made is making my whole career in ICT is going into an industry where you don't know the players. I didn't know the customers, I didn't know the politics in the company, I didn't know anything. So the company was profitable in itself, operationally, but because of old stuff in the company, it went on under. And that's a very expensive lesson I have learned in my in my venture with Amazon Mines. My third venture, and probably the most interesting one till E-Factor, is a company that was called Rijnhaaf, a difficult European name, but that doesn't matter. The company, it took me 6 years to get from 0 to 1,100 people. The first 3 years we did a roll-up, and I had developed a strategy for the roll-up, and I needed money from investors. And with the help of a financial expert of Ernst & Young, but there's many financial experts, we were able to raise the money based on the business plan, over $50 million. And we were able to raise it only on a business plan. And the investors that came in were companies like Deutsche Bank, Paribas from France, and Sinfen, which is a pension fund from the UK. The first 3 years we did about 8 acquisitions, which is a job in itself. And that in itself went quite well. The biggest problem we had is managing the financials. Doing so many acquisitions and growing that fast requires very tight control in the financial department. And that was not the best we have done, to be honest. We had to replace 2 CFOs before we had the right one. After the 8 acquisitions, we grew the company, say naturally, autonomously, to 1,100 people. And based on the fact that we were an important player in our field, we got big customers. If we had grown the company without the roll-up, we never had gotten those big customers like ING Bank, ABN AMRO, Shell Company, etc. So that was really important. And what was also important was that we were able, because of our scale, to save costs in the acquisitions. After 5 years, the board decided to sell the company because we were at a level of 1,100 people, and for me, as an entrepreneur, it became managing a company, and to be honest, that's not what I like to do. So the day that the human resource manager came to me with the handbooks how to hire people, I thought that's probably the time to leave this company. It becomes a process, and it's not an entrepreneurial process anymore. So we made a list of companies all over the world that were able to acquire that particular company. And pretty soon, British Telecom became interested in acquiring. And perhaps I was punished for my first exit, where it took only 4 days. Now it took 9 months. A company like British Telecom takes forever to do due diligence because they want to be sure of every detail. But after 9 months we sold the company. At that time, for a consultancy firm, we had 160 million in revenue, and we had a profit of 19 million, which is extremely high for a consultancy firm. But that was mainly because of the efficiency we had in the organization. And we sold the company to British Telecom for one-time revenue, which for a consultancy firm at that time was a very high multiple. And I ended up in the board of the IT arm of British Telecom, and that was not so successful either, because I'm not a corporate guy. So that took only 3 months, but they paid me for 5, by the way. So